Hello gamers and future friends, I'm Blarglefarg, and in today's video I will be reviewing a simple yet fun Metroidvania where you play as a cute mushroom who sets out to find out what happened to the rest of the mushrooms. This game had a lot going for it, but in the end, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but it actually came down to there being too much content. So gamers and future friends, I give you Lone Fungus. Now, I started out with a strong statement that the game actually had too much content, and I'll expand on that later in the video, but for now, I'd like to explain the positives. The most common and similar game to compare Lone Fungus to is by far Hollow Knight. A small creature set out with nothing but a sword to fend off against enemies to find the truth. You enter the mushroom world and immediately greeted by these mushroom statues who guide you to help you uncover what happened to your people. Along your journey, you will encounter many various enemies and bosses. Lone Fungus was never a challenging game, but it also wasn't an easy one. It constantly relied on the patience of the player in order to survive, as well as it had a very generous healing system. Combat was fluent, and my only nitpick is multiple enemies would attack you from above, and you're not able to slash your sword upwards as most Metroidvanias allow, causing you to have to either jump up and pogo off them, or jump and slash to your left or your right. There is no shortage of bosses. Seems like everywhere you went, you would soon enter this dark room, just knowing a boss was about to appear. Now, I know this is an indie game, but it's important to note that it is a very polished game. There were no stutters, no glitches, no falling through the floor, no bullshit hitboxes. It was just a clean and finished game. As far as exploration goes, it was very efficient with content as you never felt your time was wasted. There would always be something to find, a boss to kill, or just a new location to provide a sense of making progress. However, as far as visuals, the main difference in every area was just the color. You would go from the same drawing to it just now showing green rather than blue, except for one outlier. I remember entering a machinery area where there's a robot enemies, electricity traps, gears to platform on, and I remember being confused as this was the only location where it had variety to it. There are charm-like items and upgrades you will find along your journey, the first one being a ball to summon, allowing you to pogo to get to higher places. This is sort of discarded later as you eventually obtain a dash and a double jump. There are some other random ones that, if I'm being honest, I never really used. I sort of just used them to see what they did and then forgot about them. For example, you summon a green ball, and once you hit it, it dashes in the direction that you hit it, and if it hits a door, it unlocks that door. However, you eventually get a hammer to throw, and if the hammer hits the door, it unlocks it, so what was the point of the green ball? So it seems all upgrades are eventually cast aside as an easier method to do a task will soon appear. So I briefly touched on combat, story, and exploration, and it may have felt either rushed or not mentioned at all, but that's because there wasn't much to really talk about. I will now talk about the collectibles, or sort of task, that goes back to what I meant when I said there's too much content. For example, let's look at this ladybug. Now, to get this ladybug, I needed to do this. First try. And I was like, okay, cool. Then I came across another and another, and it started to dawn on me that I'm gonna have to do this same thing multiple times, and eventually I came across that number, and it had to be done 25 times, and that's all fine. That's all fine. I love it, right? Next, I got this piece of glass looking thing, and this is how I got that. And I was like, cool, okay. Then again, I came across another and another and another until eventually I found the database. And how many of these are there? Bro, are you fucking kidding me? This game has this many fucking secret rooms? Bro, these people went all fucking out. Holy, get me the fuck out of here. And it finally dawned on me how big this freaking game is. These aren't tasks to finish and go to the next location and do it again. This is what is to be found throughout the game. And look at this freaking map. How the hell have I only found 4 of these? Not to mention... Oh shit! How the fuck was I supposed to find that hidden wall there? If there were like 10, maybe even 20 of these doors, or 10 to 20 ladybugs, this might have went down as a classic game for me. But what we have here is the lack of entertaining gameplay doesn't match with the time spent playing. Let's take a look at this chart. So here we have the entertaining gameplay to playtime ratio. So let's look at a few examples. First, let's look at a game I previously reviewed, Bramble the Mountain King. The gameplay was incredible, so it would be all the way over here on the right. But the game was only 3 hours long, so it only goes up this far, so it leaves one to be frustrated for how amazing of a game it was and for it to only be 3 hours long. Second, let's look at, it doesn't matter, alright, let's look at Hi-Fi Rush, right? Gameplay was great, not the worst, not the best, so we'll put it in the middle. And playtime was around 15 to 20 hours. It wasn't 60 and it also wasn't 3. So it's in that golden spot. Any longer and the game would have felt dragged on, or any less of gameplay and it would be over here. But it felt like a perfect balance. Which brings us to Lone Fungus. If we were to plot this game on this chart, it would be here for me. Gameplay wasn't bad or boring, but it felt repetitive and uneventful. So it ranks here on the gameplay scale. However, the time to do all these tedious tasks would be way up here. So it gets put in the bad portion. If they had cut this down, it would have been brought back to the good spot, and I would recommend this game strongly. However, I recommend it with a weak recommendation. Put it on your Steam library and pick it up every once in a while when you think about it, as it is fun, but you have to sort of break it up into pieces and not feel like you're wasting your time. I feel most people think what makes a good video game is that they need to have the best gameplay and hours of playtime. And in my opinion, this couldn't be more wrong. I believe there is a perfect moderation point with every game, and it's important to understand where you lie on this scale. You can make a game with bad gameplay, but it's important not to force the player to play it for 100 hours, because the truth is, the gameplay may not be bad at all. It's the attention span of a person that with enough time will begin to see why the gameplay is bad. There are plenty of games out there with bad gameplay that are some of my favorite games of all time, but they knew when to end it. The same could be said for TV shows. I'm sure everyone has a TV show they loved that would have been your number one, but only if they had ended it after 3 seasons. But then people lost sight of what was important, and that is to create art or a masterpiece, and they were focused on money and dragged it out for as long as they could. And it turned out to be 20 seasons long, even though the show started to suck after season 5. I'm sort of getting off topic here, but in the end, I do recommend to pick up Lone Fungus, but spread out your playtime so you never come to the realization that the gameplay is a bit tedious. And that does it here, everyone. I hope you all have a wonderful day.